I knew from the very beginning, I started with a fireman peeing on his lawn and a little creature laughing at him from above, some kind of lower order divinity, who I thought was maybe stuck between in some kind of transmigration incident or something. And I didn't yet have, it was very unclear to me, it was a kind of formless hunch. And then when I realized that Masha was going to be Jewish, when I knew there was a Masha character, once I realized she was going to be Jewish, and an Orthodox Jew, I started researching Orthodox Judaism and came upon a story in a magazine article in which a woman was referring to a fly that was following her daughter around all day, and maybe it could be a soul in between lives. I thought, wait a minute, is there reincarnation in Judaism? And I started looking it up, and I found Gilgul Neshamot, which is the transmigration of souls, errant Jewish souls. So I started thinking about flies, and I thought how perfect it would be if my little creature was actually coming from another time, was stuck in our time from another time. And I had been fascinated by the 18th century. For some reason, when I made my last film, The Private Lives of Pippa Lee, I was constantly reading a biography of the Marquis de Sade. And I didn't know why I was reading it, but I was compulsively reading it. And at first, I thought maybe Jacob could have been the valet of the Marquis de Sade. But then that was too much. So I just made him the valet of somebody who could have been a friend of the Marquis de Sade. And finding his figurative voice was this kind of liberation, because I've always been very economical with my language and really kind of restrained in metaphor and so on. And I found my way somehow writing through Jacob's voice, partly because he comes from another century, unleashed my sort of figurative language for me and became much more, it was a very, very lush experience. I think because he's from another time. There were certain elements in the 18th century that were impossible to verify. Because the Jews of 18th century Paris really left virtually no trace. It's a microhistory of microhistories. The only real record that there is of Jews in 18th century Paris, of which there were only about 500 anyway in that period that I was studying, are police reports, because there was a special commissioner for the police. And in fact, his name was Bureau, and that he is a character in the book. So that character is a real character, as is the character who's keeping track of the aristocracy and their vices. This man, Bureau, took an exhaustive inventory of every Jew, every male Jew, and sometimes their wives and children, and what they're doing there, where they're living, if they're of good character or bad character, how long he'd given him a passport for. And if he was bad, had done something wrong, like selling in the wrong place or existing in Paris without a passport, he would be deported for, like, say, 3 months, and then he would be let back in. And it was really the police reports that gave me the real insight into these people's lives. But of course, things like how did women achieve their monthly cleanse, the ritual cleanse, if they didn't really have a mikveh, which at that point there wasn't a working mikveh, although I think there was one in medieval times. By that time Paris had kind of expelled all the Jews, and they were kind of trickling back in that period. So I had to just surmise at a certain point. I realized I'd contacted every expert I could find, sort of worldwide, and I finally realized that there were certain things I had to kind of put two and two together with, but it was fascinating. And part of what was such a revelation for me about researching the book and finding my way through this morass of material was that I really started seeing Judaism in a different way, in a more kind of the primitive, mythic, darker elements of Judaism came out to me in a way that I had never seen them before. I always thought of it as such a sane religion, and I realized that, the superstitiousness, the sense of magic that it really has in its earlier incarnations. And Hodel is very much, could have really come out of some of these early folkloric tales of the woman who slips in the river and comes back, and everyone suspects she's the river demon. I mean, that is in a different form something that comes in a lot in the folk tales. And Isaac Bashevis, the singer, is also coming out of that tradition and was an influence for me on the book as well, in terms of him using little creatures who influence people's thoughts and so on. I mean, that's definitely somebody that I was really influenced by.